What is up? Welcome to Dostcast. My name is Vinamre Kasanaa. ये हमारा पॉडकास्ट है. इस एपिसोड के अंदर I have Anithya Balachandran from LitArchives. If you don't know what that is, I suggest कि इसको रोको वीडियो को. Go to Instagram, type LitArchives, LitArchives. She's the admin of that. मेरी खुद की ज़िंदगी में जब एक मुश्किल दौर से मैं गुजर रहा था, उस टाइम पे I found this page. What this page does very well, and Anithya runs it with a bunch of other people, is they make literature accessible. मतलब मैं तो बोलूँगा Instagram पे जाके इन्हें follow कर लो. They have small quotes or passages from the best and a lot of unheard writers in the English language presented in the form of an Instagram square that you can share or read. तो तुम कितनी भी scrolling कर रहे हो, you have that little moment where you can break away and really enjoy a glimpse, a touch, a brush with literature. That's what this page does. It has certainly helped a lot of people in this world by introducing them to new literature, new poetry and stuff that they would normally glaze over. So I had an interesting time talking to Anithya about running that page, about her own experiences with literature. We also chat on Rupi Kaur heavily, which I think was due for a while because we all know that is not poetry. Having said that, I think you will really enjoy this episode, especially if you love the arts, if you love literature, if you love reading, if you love writing, and if you wish, kash, koi mujhe samajh pata. This is an episode for you. So the episode with the admin of LitArchives, aka Anithya Balachandran, starts in 3, 2, 1. When I went to the US, I was first referred to as Vinamre, followed by Vinamre, and then eventually I switched to VK, which is mysterious and short enough that people can say it. Anyhow, having said that, I wanted to say, first of all, welcome to Dostcast. Very happy to have you here. You have no idea, you and your co-curator, whose name I've now forgotten.
There are three of us, my co-editors.
Yes.
Arpita and Meha, and we have a volunteer as well now. Her name is Ria.
Fantastic.
So there are four of us, yeah.
So the four of you do, I don't know, like a huge service for making literature and poetry from all across the world very accessible to people who log on to Instagram. It's such a delight to essentially break the scroll when I'm scrolling through my own feed and see that kind of arrest me wherever I'm at, make me contemplate, and then sort of have that little moment in my day where there's like a high quality idea or thought or a poem that then basically allows me to make different choices. So what I'm essentially saying is you do a good job at breaking the scroll and making literature very accessible. So thank you so much for that. There are several friends from all spectrums who read LitArchives and engage with it.
No, I mean, so we started this because we wanted literature to be accessible. But having said that, people say that they're making things accessible and it still comes off as very pretentious and snooty. Like I experienced that when I first moved to Bombay. Like I really like going to art galleries. And I discovered that going to an art gallery in Bombay is something that only someone from the upper middle class or the upper class does. And I don't understand it because art galleries are free. But it's just that people have this thought inside their head that this is not for us. And people have that thought with literature as well, that this is not something that we can digest. Like this is like, you really have to be a bibliophile or someone who reads all the time to enjoy poetry. That's why formatting, like visually also, is just really simple. Like when we do excerpts, we always pair it with a really nice artwork. I think it's nice. And if it's just a poem, it's just black text on a white background. So there are like literally no frills and no fusses. And even the poetry that we do curate, we make sure it's not like a Shakespearean sonnet because it's going to be hard for people to understand. And I faced that problem when I tried to read poetry or literature on Instagram because let's face it, that is the app that we use the most, like to take a break from whatever. And the quality of content always isn't like great. But I didn't want to, like, we didn't want LitArchives to be something that was in your face about like, oh, we are great quality content, like we are intellectual, like read us.
Right.
It's just that there are 4 people that really like literature, and also these are things that we read. It's not that necessarily we go out of our way to curate this. It's our favorite work, it's like our favorite authors, and we try to put it out there for people to enjoy. And I'm really glad that people are. Like, there are times when we don't post something for like 2-3 weeks because we're all busy, and then we post one thing and people like, oh, I was glad to see you're back. And it's just really nice. It's really nice to see that people still appreciate literature on a seemingly frivolous platform like Instagram. So yeah, that's that.
Right. I have to say the role of taste in this is of supreme importance, because you can easily sense if someone is overreaching when they post something around literature, even a poem.
Yeah.
And you can sense if they really internalize those words, if those terms really live in their head, or if it's just some kind of status signaling that is happening. Because one thing that is also really popular with kind of posting about literature or poetry on Instagram is the posing that comes with it. And there are several who start with it. Well, it's very noble to kind of put your thoughts out there and publish your writing. There is this sense of, when you really ask someone, what do you mean by that? They will often go, I don't know, it just looked cool, right? So maybe, I don't know, like, do you feel a sense of duty to do right by your readers by making sure that, I don't know, everything is represented in the correct form, that you're making sure you're keeping things diverse? Like you already mentioned, you're also adding modern poets and modern stories so that people can relate. Right? Do you have like a deliberate sense of like a style guide, essentially?
There is no particular, I wouldn't call it a style guide, but there are themes that we tend to focus on like,
such as
what is okay. So during last year, we spoke about grief a lot, because people were losing their loved ones, or they were just, I mean, the world was like overcome with grief. Like, even if you weren't particularly facing loss yourself, you were consumed by loss around you. And a lot of people actually came to us and they were like, can you help us process this grief? Which I actually think is brave and vulnerable. So we did that. We even have like a guide on our page, which is just poems and excerpts about grief. And if there is a particularly joyous occasion saying that's happening in our personal lives, that we want to put out. Because I also want to say this, a lot of literature that is glorified and liked is negative, for a lack of a better word. And I get that us millennials are drawn to the darker side of things. But literature is not just that. Literature can bring joy, even when it's not sunny stuff. The text should be able to give you some sort of breather in your day. Like, we don't want to overwhelm you. We don't want to give you a Bukowski quote. Like, you have enough of that. Or we definitely don't want to give you Rupi Kaur, because, oh Lord. So, like, it's just, we try to think about these basic human emotions that people go through, and maybe they could rely on our text to help them process that emotion, whether it's grief, whether it's joy, whether it's bitterness, jealousy, you name it. Like, we try to think about what it's gonna help this person when they read it, like, do in their everyday lives. And even if it's not gonna help them personally, are they just gonna enjoy reading it? Is there a sentence in this entire poem that's gonna stick with them, and like, they're gonna think about that sentence all throughout their day? And even if they don't do that, they just want to read something which makes them smile for like 5 seconds, that is great. So there is no particular style, but relatability is the larger part of it. We want our text to be relatable, because like I said, you're not going to relate to a Shakespearean sonnet, or you're not even going to relate to a white writer in the 1700s. Like, you just won't. And another thing that we do try to do, which I will be honest and say we're not so great at doing right now, but we are trying to do, is incorporate more Indian writers,
Hmm.
more than like your Amrita Pritam that everyone knows about. So because I am Tamil, I have tried to put out a poem or two by this great Tamil poet called Bhartiya. But I've seen that people aren't really receptive to that yet. So there is some work that we have to do in building people's appetite towards like regional poetry before we go all out and like start posting it, because our page is called LitArchives, but we are an Indian page. And I don't think that comes across as that. And I
It
would
does
like,
not. I mean,
yeah,
beyond the link in bio, sorry, the bios which have your names,
yeah,
which are very Indian, it does
yeah,
not come across as something
yeah.
that's
And I really would
unlanguage.
like to change that, because I say that literature isn't supposed to be pretentious, but let's not try to be Western whilst we're at it, because, you know, literature exists all over the world. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think the challenge with making regional accessible is, for some reason, I still believe that the whole idea of engaging with literature is still a very I hate to use the word imperial, but it's still a very imperial idea, because
Yeah.
my friends in the Hindi heartland, I live in Haryana myself. They are far removed from the world of Instagram, let's face it, and they still sort of exist in kind of a more traditional sit by the chai ki tapri, read a poem. It's still a lot. It isn't as accessible because there isn't enough, for example, Hindi poetry out on Instagram. The other issue, of course, is, I mean, I don't know if you can read Tamil, and it's okay if you can't. I've seen this, especially with Hindi, is that more and more people of my age and younger than me have difficulties reading the Hindi language. They can speak it, they can speak the Hindi slangs, but they don't know how to read the Devanagari script, which is a challenge, because what that basically does is render so much of what has happened in the Hindi vernacular scene irrelevant as just insects on a page that don't make any sense. So there is definitely that challenge as well. Plus, I think there is also kind of what's it, sanctimonious, a little bit of sanctimonious way of looking at Hindi poetry and literature. It's kind of holier than thou. So it isn't, it isn't as easily available or as easily talked about.
Yeah.
Because you sort of have to don the traditional kurta and writer wali hat to really, really talk about it, which I don't think should be the case.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I'll give you an example. So I went to a poetry open mic about 2 weeks ago. And this was not 2 weeks, more than that, but anyway, this was my first time where I was going to recite my poetry on a stage. And I was shit scared as is. And the room was a mix of people that were going to recite poetry in English and people that were going to recite poetry in Hindi. And as you rightly said, the Hindi poets were these kurta donning people. And that is fine. That's your thing. But there was one guy towards the end of the set that came up on stage and he was like, यहाँ पे तो बहुत लोग अंग्रेजी बोल रहे हैं तो उनको मेरी भाषा समझ में आएगी क्या पता नहीं. And he said it in a way, and he also said these Bandra Juhu kids, which really like pissed me off, because you're creating this archetype because I speak in a particular language and you think you're placing me on a pedestal that I have not placed myself on.
Yeah.
And that is the problem when it comes to, even when you want to try translate Hindi poetry into English, there are a lot of people that have a problem with that because they're like, this is not right. And poetry is open to interpretation, right? So what it means to you, it can't mean to everyone else. Like, everyone will not have that sentiment attached to it. I can only do my job and make it accessible for people. But yeah, and I actually walked out when he said that because I just got so mad. Like I was like, I am so done with just because you speak in English, you are perceived in a particular way, which is ironic because till about 100 years ago, it was the other way around. Like if you did speak in English, you were perceived a different way. And there's no winning. Like there is no balance of like Western and Indian culture, and I don't know. I also think that people don't allow you space to make that like balance. Like they get really mad at you, they stick to their side. And when you like, okay, so I can't read Hindi either, and I really hate that because I would love to indulge in Hindi poetry.
Right.
And I don't think the translation anyway does it justice. But I've never really found anyone that's willing to sit down with me and explain to me, because I feel like it's like a gated community. And whoever makes it there on their own because of their ability to read the script, great, like welcome, come. But if you can't, like, I'm sorry, like, like stay there. And I'm just like, okay. Hopefully I find somebody that does, but
I'm sure you will, although I've heard that Mumbai has a particular dearth of Hindi teachers. In fact, so funny that you mentioned that, because Manoj Bajpayee, the actor, he did a whole session on language at Maharashtra Matri Mandal Library. And he was talking about the same thing, where Mumbai, he was trying to find a Hindi teacher for his daughter because he realized that she couldn't speak it properly, but there were no teachers. But coming back to the whole comment that this guy made about Bandra kids and Juhu kids, this is very prevalent, where pride turns into condescension. I have also seen a poet I admire, Hussein Haidari, had a whole poem where he talked about, he equated Indianness with chai and, everything else, and, with coffee, which I thought was wrong, because I love coffee. I don't really like chai. So in order to be Indian, I have to drink chai. And these definitions kind of fall flat on their face in the 21st century, when the idea of what it means to be Indian is kind of all over the place. And I think what Hindi speakers, Hindi poets, and many Hindi authors can do now, or any regional authors can do now, is instead of trying to wear this I'm superior than you hat because I'm in touch with the vernacular, instead accommodate others who would want to benefit from this in the same way like other nations have done when immigrants have come and try to assimilate in the culture. But I do see this pride condescension problem happening a lot. At this poetry slam, I'm just wondering, how were the English poems like? Were they?
I'll be really honest with you, the Hindi poems were definitely better. And that's also my problem with this lack of accommodation for people that aren't really in touch with the script per se, is because they do know how to write better. Okay. And it would be so great if they could teach us, because writing is not really language dependent. It's what you feel and what you emote into words, right? The words that you choose from your language, that's your call. But like the English poems, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say sucked ass. Like even mine was really superficial. Okay. Mine was about like, all these people that I met on dating apps and I call them mistakes. It was well written, but it still sucked ass because it was such a superficial topic. It's not really something I give a shit about. But, when I sat down to write, I was like, what's going to do well at an open mic? And I've seen love usually do really well. Like, so I was just
that's when they go like this.
Yeah, and it did, like it did like do well, but the Hindi poem had more substance. Like they spoke about a range of things. Like this one girl spoke about it was about love, but the way she used her lover's kurta as a metaphor for a lot of things, and it was beautiful. It just sucks that if I went up to her and I was like, great poem, man, she'd firstly be really pissed off that I'm speaking in the accent that I'm speaking in. And she would even question whether I really am interested in her poetry or not. And I really hope that changes. And I also think that this lack of accommodation comes from intimidation, which is self-created, obviously. And I don't blame them, because for so long, even when I went to school here, English was the superior language.
Still is.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And like, they don't give a shit about your Hindi marks. Like your parents will ask you, what did you get in English? And it sucks ass because they're asking you that question in Hindi. So why do you not care about that language? But I mean, I don't know how LitArchives can change that. It hurts my brain in thinking how, because it's not a small change, obviously. And we did not create this page to kind of make a change. We just wanted people to enjoy it. And that's where my conflict comes in as well. Like, do I treat this as a page that can bring about a small social change? Or do I just let it be? Do I just keep it open for anyone that wants to come and indulge? But yeah, it would be really nice to kind of coexist with Hindi poets and other regional poets as well, because they definitely do know how to write better and like with more substance than Western poets. So yeah.
I think even if you don't make a change to, converting or at least introducing more Indian language poems to your readers, I still think that it has, even if it's a small impact, it's a very meaty impact, because it isn't like, say, watching a meme, laughing inwardly and moving on. Like I said, I've talked to numerous friends before I did this podcast who also follow the page to kind of understand what their experience of it is. And I found that several of them share excerpts, particularly excerpts on the page on their story, as a way to encapsulate complicated emotions that they finally found a language for.
Yeah, no. So you asked me to bring 2-3 poems to this session, right?
Right.
So one of the poems is just, this line has stuck to me ever since I read it. Is just that it says that grief is a neighborhood and everyone I love still lives there.
Oh yeah, I read that. It was beautiful.
And I can't get it out of my head, because I think grief is one of the most complex human emotions to process. No matter how much you've lost, every time you lose, you don't know how to deal with grief. And this line is just it's so positive. Like, it's not negative at all. It's like, you accept that everybody that you know has lost and is still somewhere in that loss. Like, especially when growing up, we are taught things like, let the past be the past, let it not affect your future, because it's like supposed to make you stronger. I think it's fucking stupid, dude. Of course your past is gonna affect your future. If it doesn't, like, you are stagnating as a person. I don't want to get like psychological, but like, I feel that our lack of ability to marinate in these negative emotions and learn from it, I think that's where like literature helps. Like your friends rightly said, it like allows me to express something very complex that I can't articulate myself. And I am a writer and I struggle to articulate. So I mean, I completely get that, because I mean, that's why it exists, because there are other people out there that have done the thinking for you. They've written down their thoughts and now you're just kind of living that, and it's very reaffirming as well.
Yeah, there's also solace and relief in that I'm not going through this alone, that no matter how fucked up and unique I think this is, there is a version of it that exists out there, and the writer of this has written it, got published, so they probably got past it, or they know how to live with it, and that's very hopeful. I don't think people realize it isn't poems like A Thing of Beauty is a Joy Forever, or Robert Frost's that poem about the two ways. I forget what the name is.
The pods that diverge in the woods.
Yes.
I don't remember the name either, but I know what one.
Those are great, but when you really want some kind of a catharsis or relief, it's usually poems that deal with, I don't know, being in love with two people at the same time, or not having names for specific emotions, even grief for that matter. It's very funny that you sort of brought it up, because while I was driving to my studio, I happened to chance upon a couple of emotions and feelings that I hadn't thought in a while, and like a teardrop came to me, which often happens when you engage with literature. And there is so much talk in our culture about kind of this facade of positivity, and to essentially, I met a gentleman who was saying, swear words are bad, and marinating these emotions is just not good at all. But I felt like, wow, that's just repression. You're not allowing yourself to feel the fullness of your existence, and you're like you're like a, what's the right word? You're like a dehydrated sponge. I don't know how to express that.
Yeah. It is a paradox. Of course, it's a paradox because it's often talked about that men are told not to cry. Okay?
Yeah.
But women are also portrayed as these superior beings. Like, when they say that behind every successful man, there is a woman. That puts a lot of pressure. Like I'm sure like it's okay for a woman to cry. Of course, it's more socially acceptable if a woman breaks down in public, but there's also a certain point beyond which there are just barriers for all of us, beyond which
Right.
we are not allowed to break down, and we are not allowed to wallow, for lack of a better word, in what we feel. Now, I also think that our generation wallows a bit too much because of
Too much.
Instagram. Yeah, I like sometimes I really come onto Instagram after a bad day, and I'm all for people being vocal about their mental health, but then I see someone just ranting on their stories, and I get that's an outlet for you, but sometimes it can be a bit overbearing because you need to be aware of what you're projecting onto other people as
Right.
well. That's why literature, you go read something that makes you sad, you can share that instead of your less well articulated 10-page long stories that people just have to sit and scroll by and then end up muting you anyway.
Yeah, that is exactly what happens, by the way. I think the ease of expression has eliminated reflection, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which I think is vital, because there is one thing to kind of let your biology take over and tweet immediately, and it's kind of like write immediately that things are not going well, and it's harder to hack that and say, let me check in with myself first and see if I can sort of move things around before I start, essentially disseminating this to the world to see what I get back. Because I face this myself, and I find that like a moment of private journaling will do far better than like talking about it in a story, because then you're involved in the to and fro of the responses, people saying, hey, are you okay? Can I do something for you? All of that. And it just changes from a momentary expression of, hey, I'm feeling this, to constant correspondence with your well-wishers, so-called well-wishers.
Yeah. Like last year, something that I saw a lot, especially after Sushant Singh killed himself, was a lot of people in India were coming out and saying, if you need someone to talk to, I am here. So fucking absurd. You're a stranger. My lowest moment, I'm not gonna come on Instagram and I'm not gonna find that comforting. So it's essentially something that someone says for themselves to make themselves seem available to someone's vulnerability and difficulties. But I don't think anybody is that empathetic as a person to, sit and listen to a stranger talk about their life. And even if they were, in the off chance that they are, I don't think you would be able to help, because at certain times you need to be heard by someone that you are loved by, or at least respected by, not someone that's going to shut down that conversation in half an hour, because that's when the empathy runs out, and empathy isn't endless. Like, I feel like Instagram and talking about mental health on Instagram has made it seem like empathy, kindness, there is an abundance of it, when in actual fact there isn't. Why else would we all be going to therapy if we all had these great emotions within ourselves? We don't. Like, we're fighting with the demons in our head every fucking day. So I really, like, I get so pissed off, and I also get really annoyed when someone passes away. It's so instant. Like, the reaction on social media, like, I feel like grief is mocked a lot because of social media. Like, they don't, like you said, like a minute of journaling will do you more good than going on your stories and just resharing something. Like, even when there were stuff happening in Afghanistan, people will all share that one particular infographic. There will just be a line of stories doing the same thing, and you're not making anyone aware, because one person has shared it. That's enough. You are not changing, and you're not even also giving people time to process that there are shitty parts of this world, and there's shit going on right now, and I don't know, man. I struggle. I get really annoyed, and my worst fear of being a public figure of sorts with the LitArchives is I'm gonna say something and I'm gonna get cancelled because I do harbor a lot of opinions where I don't think that should be spoken about on Instagram. Like people air their dirty laundry a lot, and they pass it off as them releasing their emotions, but
yeah, I have a quote. It says Instagram is not your therapist, and the people who watch a story are not your therapist either.
yeah.
What's funny about all of this is while Instagram kind of provides these small fragments of information where you have to make up your mind what you think about something in a minute. Being able to immerse yourself in a long form medium like a podcast such as this or a book allows the proper time for emotions to come and go, for scenes to build and sort of destruct in your head. Now, if you once you've immersed yourself in that, once you have a routine or a practice around that,
Yeah.
I think you become better at being unfazed by this. But and I'm sure you can comment on this. If all you do is just read the LitArchives page, then you're in for trouble because it can give you like an insight, but essentially it's a portal for you to start reading, right? Or to start engaging with literature in like a deeper manner.
Yeah. So literature can't fully be your coping mechanism, because you realize that a lot of writers themselves are fucked in the head, and and had terrible lives, like especially the writers in the 90s, 80s, 70s, like before the 2000s, all of them, where did that phrase come from? Take your broken heart and make it out. All that nonsense actually came because these people did that they did that. Like they were actually sad people that tried to utilize their tragedy to make something of it. And so yeah, it does worry me sometimes, the dependency that people have on our page, as heartwarming as it is. We can't do the internal work for you. We can give you tools that will help you in intervals where you're taking out time for yourself. But none of this text, none of these words can save you. You can't. It's also unfair to place that power on something else other than yourself.
Right.
So that's where the curation bit becomes a little tricky as well, because sometimes I read text which I think other people would find mundane because there's nothing coming out of it. Like there's no lesson. It's just it could be a writer talking about this night train that he's taking through his city and then just beautifully describing all the imagery. And then I think, okay, can this go on LitArchives? And then I'm like, okay, what are people going to get out of this? And if my answer is nothing, I will not post it. Which is kind of sad, because now that we have such a reach, I do feel like they should get something out of it. I mean, we put out pieces out there that are just really plain, but they don't really do well. Because people want
but that's also important, right? Because if you don't care about the end user experience, you're kind of just doing it for yourself, and it's a very thin line where you might have started off as a passion project, but now it's taken a larger life.
Being passionate about literature is very tricky, because you start off passionate for selfish reasons, and then when you try to impart that passion, you have to become selfless. Like there are texts that I can no longer cling to and be like, this is my favorite book, so I will not share stuff from it because this is very dear to me. Like one of my favorite books ever is To Kill a Mockingbird, and I think there's just so much to learn from that book. And when I read it, I didn't understand shit because I read it in high school. But then now you look at the world and you go back and you read that book and you understand there's a lot that you can take away from this piece of literature. But then again, I'm not ready to be the one to impart that because it's so dear to me. So yeah, it is. When you run a literature page, there is a lot of questioning that you have to do about, like, do I want to share this publicly? And if you see the editor's personal pages, we share a lot of literature that you'll never see on the page.
Right.
Because this is literature that we thoroughly enjoy. Like the Grief is a Neighborhood piece, I really don't want to put on the LitArchives because it's so dear to me. And that line is just stuck with me so well. And I'm sure it will stick with other people, but I don't think I am ready to part with that line just yet.
Yeah, there is definitely a tendency amongst any of us who read or
Yeah.
write to keep to not broadcast our darlings, but to keep them hidden in the cave for our own pleasure. And I mean, it's nice. And I don't think this really has to be a Mother Teresa-esque selfless service to humanity, because part of our joy is also come from having secret knowledge that no one else has. And that it's the same as a kid harboring a secret or like having a secret. Like in stories, one common trope is often how a kid will have a secret friendship with a ghost, like a mythical being. And that's kind of like a small, private, protected, safe place for just that kid and that mythical being to engage in camaraderie, all of those things, which I think as adults we still need. Like, I don't think people realize the value of keeping, I don't know, some things sacred, whether that's a poem, whether that's a book, whether that's a specific memory, so that it just, I don't know, like honor more of your inner life instead of expressing everything. And it's challenging because here we are doing a podcast, here we are, discussing your page. But that's one of the things that I also often wonder about, is how much of this do I want to keep private? Which kind of leads me to, having seen the response on your page, having seen which posts work well, has that kind of informed or improved your own writing or your own acumen toward, just receiving literature?
Not really. Because I'll tell you why. Like I said, I personally enjoy literature that is very plain. When I say plain, I mean I love imagery. I don't necessarily read to like learn something or evolve as a person. I read as a break. Like, that's my me time. Like,
right.
And I think that's where a lot of the sanctity of the pieces that I love so much comes from, because I know that if I share it with other people, they're gonna be like, but इसका मतलब क्या है? And उसका मतलब मैं नहीं समझा सकती और मुझे समझना भी नहीं है. It's just absurd. Like, there are words that are strung together in a beautiful way.
Right.
What has changed my way of writing is that writing has become a business, okay? Especially for a writer on Instagram. I don't think that's bad. Because influencers can earn money, but writers need the money for them. So I would love it if Instagram could also become like a thing that we, get something from. So I realized that there are certain themes that do really well with people. Like grief is one, love is one, jealousy is one, which is great for me because I'm a green-eyed monster myself. So I wouldn't say it has changed the way I write, but yeah, I have tend to explore other themes that I usually wouldn't. Like, when I started off writing, I swore to myself I would never be one of those writers that would not write about love all the time. But now that is a very all-consuming emotion that we go through at this age in our lives. So I've made my peace with it. I try my best to not be so facial though. And if I am being so facial, I try to be witty. Because I've seen that does really well as well. So yeah, like the page does help you understand what people like. And at the end of the day, you want to write just for yourself. Like, you are a writer so that people enjoy what you read, or more than enjoy, if they relate to what you read. I think that's like my biggest prize. I don't think it's fully changed my acumen just yet, because I don't think I'm ready to make that change within myself. Like, I'm still a small fish in a big pond. So yeah, but it does help you understand what people enjoy and what people relate to the most.
Yeah, I one thing I've noticed is you never post self-help or nonfiction. which is I think pretty much, because I run a little reading and writing course in English, where I teach this to anyone who cannot afford like a full-fledged literature degree, right? And I've noticed that nonfiction does extremely well because it has directives, it has a clear takeaway, usually speaking, and it's based around a central theme.
Yeah.
The toughest thing about selling a fiction book, and I also run a newsletter and a bunch of other things, is what do I do? Do I talk about the imagery? Do I talk about how I like this book because this is written during Aldous Huxley's most formative years? It's just the offering to get the other person to get the book or to read that is just very lateral.
Yeah.
And for so many, still the pursuit of literature is seen as something that has to have a tangible reward, where I think the problem lies.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you where I think that stems from. And it also, like if I delve into it. So, as Indians, we are seen as people that are typically good at math. Like I got a lot of flack in secondary school because I was probably the only brown person that was shit at math.
I suck at math. I got a 33 and then flunked the next year.
But like people just could not fathom that because they were like, you are Indian. How do you not like math? How are you not good at math? Like your parents are good at math. And I was like, yeah, but it's not my jam. Like I'm better at English. So I think we as a community or a race do well with logic. We are driven by logic more than we are. Of course, there is emotion, but I think the driving factor of how our society functions is because of logic. Now, that logic isn't always right. And because of that, emotions get suppressed. That's why we tend not to go towards nonfiction, because we don't want to give you answers. We appreciate that you may come to our page looking for answers, but if we give you answers, what if they're not right? Honestly, and you like go ahead with it and you're like, you know what, this piece of text, like this excerpt from what is that book? The Subtle Art of Not
Giving a fuck. Yes.
Said this, so this is how I'm going to be now. That's not gonna work for you. Like it really will not. And I never ever want to be the cause of a forced change, and I don't think anybody does. Like nobody should be. That's why sometimes our pieces can be what is the word that I'm looking for? Abstract. And abstraction can be very frustrating. It frustrates me a lot, and I know like it frustrates a lot of other people as well, because you kind of have to sit with it and you have to make your own meaning of it, and you also have to be content if you don't find the meaning. Like when I studied literature, we studied Othello, and now the broader part of Othello is he's a guy that got jealous and he killed his wife and his wife's supposed lover when there was no such thing happening between them. That is on the surface. But you delve beneath that, you see that Othello is a very insecure man. He's insecure because he was a black man. He was a black man in power at a time when black men weren't in power. And that gets lost because everybody sees Othello as jealousy. Like the term, the green-eyed monster was coined there. And I think that if literature gives you answers, it's not literature at all. It's just a textbook. It's as factual as your science textbook. And I don't think writers are insane, man. Like, who are we to like tell you how to live your life, or even show you the way to live it? What we can only do is help you cope at times when you don't know which path to take. So yeah, that's why we don't do nonfiction. We don't do self-help. Because God knows we need help ourselves. So pretending to like dish out help would be really, hypocritical on our part.
I noticed this especially with I ran a poll on Instagram just confirming something I always knew, is that it's harder for young Indian men to read fiction than it is for them to read nonfiction, and it's primarily because all our thought leaders or like the role models happen to be businessmen and entrepreneurs and go-getters, which is great because I love those. You know, I'm very ambitious, but there aren't enough fiction authors, you know, deemed as role models. So
Yeah.
plus it isn't very, like I said before, very practical to read a 300-page book about, like, you know, some village in South India where a woman is trying to just get by in, you know, post-independence India. I'm talking about Kamala Markandeya's Nectar in a Sea, which is a wonderful book, one of the first female Indian writers. But it's just harder for, like, because a lot of guys follow me. It's harder for me to like tell them why to read fiction. So I've just kind of stopped the entire endeavor and said I do this podcast where all the insights shall be gleaned from two people conversing, because it's very tough to be detective about things that you've gained a not so tangible reward from. Like you can read 10 fiction books and just be the same person, but like something in your unconscious has changed, and you can't really you know, package that as a takeaway and tell people, hey, this is why you should do it.
Yeah. I also think there are certain personality traits that get pegged down on you if you are a lover of fiction. Like you are seen as sensitive, you are seen as an idealist, you are seen as a dreamer, you are seen as someone that's always happy. And like that whole Jew Bandra thing, that archetype that is created because you like different segments of literature, I think is just absolutely bullshit. Like I can't stand it. Like, so I do understand, like I've tried to get a lot of friends, like guy friends of mine, to read fiction, and they're just like, it's not something we're like not used to living in our heads. And I'm like, but you're not living in your head, you're literally reading someone else's story. But they're like, why should I care? You know, I have like these problems of my own. And like, that's exactly why you should care. Like, get away from your problems for a bit. But yeah, I don't know if that will ever change, because I guess archetypes will always be created no matter what you do.
Right.
You could just try your best to defy them, or just not give a shit about them.
Yeah. Anithya, what's the most frequent kind of message you've received in LitArchives? What are people asking of you guys?
They don't actually ask as much as they thank. The gratitude is overwhelming. Like, you know, thank you for sharing this, or like, you've made my day. Not as much as you've made my day, as much as you know, I was having a bad moment, or I was having a bad day, and then I came onto your page. And the page is also kind of personified itself and become a friend for people. So when there is a lull of silence on our page, people get upset because they look forward to the posts every day, which I'm really grateful for. Sometimes I can't even fathom it, that, you know, I am a part of something like this. But yeah, they don't really ask, except for that last year when a lot of people asked for those grief excerpts to be like, you know, made a guide out of, which I completely understand. A lot of people also ask, like, can you share my stuff? Can you do this? Can you do that?
Like shout outs.
No, not as much. No, I get it. Like I get why like writers need to be like, you know, promoted more on Instagram. I get that. But if you do it for one person, you're gonna kind of have to do it for them all.
Yeah.
The subjectivity gets lost, because I may enjoy your thing and I'll share it on my page, but I really, you know, I don't think it's something that the followers of this page will enjoy.
You care about people's attention. That is what I've noticed. There's never any spam on your page, and that's very commendable.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't want to do what you hate, right? Like, then there's no point of having another Instagram page. Like, I spam on my personal account because I know people will just swipe past it, or like my friends will see it. That's for me. But like with the LitArchives, it's not a personal page. Like, even before we put our names in the bio much later. Like, we really did not want the page to have a face, so that when people interacted with us, they didn't feel intimidated because they thought they were interacting to like one person, whatever. But because of certain reasons, we had to put our names on the page. Right. But yeah, like we also try not to interact with the followers if they're trying to engage in a conversation with us. I'll tell you why, because we can't do that all the time. And I'm very happy that people think that this is a safe space, and it definitely is. But like I said before, it can't be a page that you are dependent on. Like, your mental health cannot be dependent on the LitArchives, because there are times when the LitArchives doesn't post for a month or two. So what are you going to do then? Thankfully, I think we've created like a bank. So there's a lot on our page that you can go through. But yeah, like I like that the friend is a page to people. So even when we don't reply, people just message and say thank you, or they'll share something. That's
right.
Nice. So yeah, that's
yeah. I also think if you begin replying, and I've faced some of this now that I have a few followers and a bunch of YouTube channels and stuff, you have to have clear rules for that kind of engagement once you reach a certain number or scale, primarily because you might be doing something very important and you will treat that notification as urgent. And we pull into a conversation that has nothing to do with you. For the sake of being hospitable and chalo engagement ke liye kar lete hain, you can sort of like get in a loop where you sort of overstep I don't know, like the borders or like the boundaries you've set for your page, and become this lively editorial voice that I think you would best express through the content you put out rather than through your comments. How do you guys decide which post goes up? Is there like consensus? Do you operate alone? How does that happen?
No, there is. So the point of putting out literature is that it's not something that you need someone else's approval on, right? It's not like I worked in digital marketing, so before you post something, you need like 5 million people's approval. There is no such thing here. Right now, we operate on the system of each of the editors. So the 4 of us take a week each. So say it's my week, I will curate all the poetry and excerpts for the week. Of course, I share them with the other people, but we share it so that we can enjoy this literature together. We've never had a conversation where we've said that, oh no, you know what, don't post this. If we say don't post this, it's because it's been posted before, like on the page, right? That's the only time there's ever a no. And even when those Call Me By Your Name excerpts went up, so I chose those because I really like the film, and I read the book actually after the film, and I enjoyed the text, but I was unaware of the backlash that the author was receiving, and apparently there's even problematic portrayal of a certain character, and I didn't want to overstep people and anger them, so I took it down. But yeah, there has never been anything as it's not a collective decision. It's if you enjoy this literature, you are like free to post it. But obviously, yeah, we do try to stay away from controversial shit. Like, we would never post something that Dave Chappelle has said in one of his specials.
Or Salman Rushdie.
Yeah. See, so those writers, of course, we have a certain bank of writers that we stay away from, and one of my top ones is Rupi Kaur.
Yeah. Why is that? Everyone loves her on Instagram. I mean, I have my own opinions about her poetry, but
so I don't know who these people are that love her, because there are like millions of them. But I've never met a single person that's like Rupi Kaur. I think her poetry is it's not poetry.
Thank you so much. I was afraid of getting here because I felt like because she has a fanatic following, and I've never had any hatred against her. I think she's a wonderful saleswoman, and she's great at...
That's what she is. She's a saleswoman, and I'll give it to her. She's good at that. But her poetry is basically a Dear Diary page from a 12-year-old's notebook.
I think it's a sentence cut into lines.
Yeah.
Smaller lines.
It's just... And I get this micro poetry really works on Instagram. That's how poetry actually came onto Instagram. This long format, people started having an appetite for much later. Like, there's the terribly tiny tales.
Yes. There's also make blackout poetry, which is you get that by blacking out specific lines of a newspaper to write a poem.
Really?
Do you not know? This is very popular.
Okay. Sounds really bad.
It is bad. Yes.
But then there's this other guy who's like the male version of Rupi called R.M. Drake.
I have had the misfortune of reading him as well.
So these people have published copious amounts of books, and I don't see. I mean, I'm not even trying to be an intellectual here. There are things that she writes that are just as mundane as I am sitting on the table. There is a pen before me. The pen is alone, so therefore I am alone. It reads that stupidly to me.
Yeah, like you have a tattoo. If I was Rupi Kaur, I'd say her tattoo is like a resilience, and that would get like a 10,000 likes. And the issue with this is, while it does democratize poetry, it also allows the peddling of bullshit, which is what I have a problem with. Primarily because it is like you're saying, okay, let's not even bother with structure or form at all. Let's not even decide to do the standard AB rhyming. Let's just fucking write whatever we want.
Yeah.
And then if we are, I don't know, what I think is I'm going to be a little unparliamentary. It's some kind of a circle jerk to make you feel good.
Yeah.
And I mean, poems occasionally make you feel good, but I often err on the side of Franz Kafka, where I think, poetry is supposed to, what is it, like unfreeze the sea of some shit inside you, but like it's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to make you feel things that might be a little uncomfortable, and that's almost something that I never encounter when I read poems like this on Instagram.
It's all more than it's supposed to make you feel something. It's also supposed to be a little unique, right? Like her poetry is just mostly about her heart being broken.
Which is, by the way, all slam poets in India ever.
Me, oh my god, I am one of them. When I did my open mic, I'm calling myself out here. But no, like, like how Taylor Swift is really known for like her heartbreak songs, but I'll give it to the woman. She does it uniquely in its
very
song,
uniquely.
okay? And she's a good music producer. Like, she knows her music. So I don't have a problem with Rupi Kaur constantly being heartbroken. It's just that, woman, can you change the way you describe it a little? I am done. I also think that, like when you go into it a little deeper, like you see that this constant victimization, okay, when someone is heartbroken, and I'm guessing the guy that breaks her heart in these poems is a male, okay? I mean, I think he is anyway. Yeah. I hate, like, because, it's like only women get their heart broken and guys do all the heartbreaking. And it's not right. Like, you could have been the bitch. We just won't know because the guy, because the guy whose heart you broke is clearly ain't no Rupi Kaur and has like 10 million followers on Instagram. Right. So it's just this very mundane, one-sided story of something that someone is going through. And I will give it to her that she has utilized her skills to make it on a platform that isn't designed for poetry. Like you said, she's a really good, or she's got a great PR team or marketing team.
Right.
But I, for the lack of like life of me, do not understand. Like, I find it almost disrespectful that people engage with that and not with other meaningful texts.
Right.
And other artists and writers that really put everything they have into their works of art. It's really unfair that you write 5 sentences and get like 3 best-selling New York Times books, and these other people can barely even pay their bills. It's not fair. Like, I just don't think it's fair.
Yeah, I also think that it has also given a rise. It's also made a lot of, I've seen this in younger males. I was certainly guilty of it when first starting out writing poetry. Yeah. I started writing very complicated poems in 2016, 2015, and started posting them on Instagram. I've now figured out how to make them accessible and fun, thanks to just writing a lot of online poetry. Yeah. But I found that like some young guys will often mimic Rupi Kaur style, and then tag a woman they want to get with and write @my muse, which is the worst way to get friend zoned ever in this world. And they never learn. They just think that, using a line and equating some body part to some kind of endearing quality will, make the woman fall head over heels. But that is never the case.
I also think that, even making someone your muse is a very intricate, like, emotional concept, okay? Because you are so overcome by what you feel for them that, they have provoked you to make something off of it. And raging hormones and making someone your muse is like two really different things.
Right.
That's also why I have a problem with like commercial love poetry, because it's not really love that they're talking about. It's infatuation more than anything. And then when that infatuation ends, people like Rupi Kaur are birthed. So I hope that she never hears this, but I will be cancelled.
No, I think you should do like a podcast a week and slowly cancel yourself day by day. So by the time she finds out about you, you were already uncanceled.
I'm already been slandered. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, no, I respect her. I guess I wish that other writers also got the, publicity and platform that she has, or she would even be kind enough to share that platform with other writers. Like, this is the thing I've noticed about writers. They don't pull each other up because it's so hard for you to make it up there. When you're up there, you kind of just like, I did this on my own. It was tougher for me because I'm a writer. I get that, but come on, man, like, lend a helping hand.
Right.
To your fellow brethren. But
yeah, I think it was Hemingway or Dostoevsky, I've forgotten who said that, when you write, you embody the spirit of all your friends. And I see this so much in my own writing, and just you're never really writing from this place that people mistakenly call original thought, originality. You're always, constantly being influenced, whether you like it or not, by the posters in your room, by the books in the background, by the conversations you had with someone in the day. And it is very arrogant to say I did it by myself, and to have no page as a forward that says for mama, papa, or for just like this is just me. But yeah, we should read out some of the poems we've brought today. But let's start with you. How did you decide to choose these poems? Why these over some other poems?
Okay, so I have 3. Hang on, let me just. Okay, so one is by this poet called Caroline Duffy. She does love poetry, but exceptionally well. That's because she uses, like, what you'll see.
Okay.
The title is very soppy. It's called Valentine. Valentine by Caroline Duffy. Okay. Not a red rose or a satin heart. I give you an onion. It's a moon wrapped in brown paper. It promises light like the careful undressing of love. Here it will blind you with tears like a lover. It will make your reflection a wobbling photo of grief. I am trying to be truthful, not a cute card or a kissogram. I give you an onion. Its fierce kiss will stay on your lips, possessive and faithful as we are, for as long as we are. Take it. Its platinum loops shrink to a wedding ring, if you like. Lethal, its scent will cling to your fingers, cling to your knife. She's literally taken a fucking onion and made it a Valentine's gift.
Wow, that's insane. I will never look at onions the same. I will see them as symbols of love and rub them in my eyes.
No, for the longest time, like, I found this poem really ridiculous to begin with, because I was like, you just glorified a fucking onion. But the way she's done it, like, she's not being serious, like, it is mocking.
Right.
And that's what I like about writers, when they don't take themselves seriously. And
it's very playful, but also, there's a layer of sincerity beneath that playfulness. Yeah,
there is, because it's essentially it's talking about the layers of an onion, like slowly unraveling, like the love with someone unravels, which I think is clever, and the way she's done it is clever as well. And I think she gets her heart broken in the end because she says it will cling to your knife. So I'm like, it's okay.
But also the imagery in there, like everyone knows what it feels like to pick up a knife and to have it smell like an onion.
Yeah.
That's something that people don't appreciate. It's picked up from like such a mundane thing that people forget about.
Yeah. The pungency of an onion is just as powerful and passionate as the love, I guess, you feel for someone.
Yeah. Total aside, makes me think of that skunk in Looney Tunes. I don't know if you watched. He's a French skunk. Yeah.
French skunk. No, I watched Baby Looney Tunes.
Yeah, he wasn't in there. Baby Looney Tunes was funny as well. Okay, I have a poem I've read this before on my streams, but I'll read this again.
Okay.
Indian poet Jeet Thayil.
Oh yeah.
He's the best I have ever read. And this is called The Opposite of Nostalgia.
Okay.
It reads, the poem is called The Opposite of Nostalgia by Jeet Thayil. I'm trying to forget those days one day at a time. The pitiful rooms with their puddles of light, the women I haggled with, the car stopped in the street, the wife barefoot on the run, car keys in her hand, or I'm there, the sum of my ambition defined by old rage, my anger like a slow child hitting out at anyone who comes her way. I'm thinking of the negotiation with strangers, the attempt to say things differently, the men's room at the airport, the glassine bag, the rolled up note, the line hitting the back of my throat with a kick like an anesthetic, and later the paramedic saying I'm alive, saying I'm lucky to be alive, and telling him he's wrong. I'm not lucky or alive, just high.
See that do you realize that both of these writers do not take themselves seriously? And they lead you to believe that, you know, this is some really intense, like, internal monologue. And then at the end, it's just like, boom, you've been played. And they do it so well. Like, even the imagery in this one, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's battled heroin use for over like 2 decades or something, but then decided to just talk all about it in his books, Narcopolis, Book of Chocolate Saints. Really great if you haven't read him. He's one of the few Indian writers that steer clear past the Indianness that everyone writes with. Ki hum to Indian hai ji, let's talk about mangoes and like, young children and like, wine-colored days, all that jazz. But it's funny, like, I mean, an addict knows what it's like to be an addict and can poke fun at that. That's what you want to see, as opposed to kind of like this, someone sitting on their high horse preaching in a poem.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to read the next one?
Okay, this is the Grief as a Neighborhood one.
Okay.
It's called A Coworker Asks Me If I Am Sad Still. Okay. And I tell her, I actually don't know. I ridiculously found this on Pinterest. And I spent like an hour just looking for the author, but
no worries.
No, could not find. Okay. A coworker asks me if I am sad still, and I tell her, grief is not a feeling, but a neighborhood. This is where I come from. Everyone I love still lives there. Someday I hope to raise a family in a place you could not mistake for any home I've ever been in. Brenna, she says, there's no such thing as a haunted house. Oh,
wow.
Exactly. Oh,
it's small, but it hurts like a bitch. Hurts a lot.
The line, someday I hope to raise a family in a place you could not mistake for any home I've ever been in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like you want to protect your family from this neighborhood. Is that what she's saying?
No, she's saying that she does not want to ever have a house that is filled with this grief. Like the home that she was raised in was a place that she does not want to recreate, because everyone she still loves lives there. Like it's I'm guessing whoever wrote this comes from like a broken or dysfunctional family. But I think that line is very poignant anyway, because I don't know if you do this, but I've done this a lot, even when I was a child, which is actually absurd. But if my parents would upset me, I would always promise to myself that when I am a mother, I will not be this way. Even as a
Yes.
child, you think of yourself in that role, which is really ridiculous because you are a child, and how can you even know if you want children at the time? But that instinct to like not self-preserve, but preserve whatever comes after this, and that it's yours, and not be that way.
Right.
I think it's just
I had no idea I would ever, live abroad. I lived in Boston for 4 years for college. But I remember reading my journal from seventh grade, and my parents are pretty damn progressive now. But back then, I felt like they're conservative, relatively conservative, but it was not true at all. It was just my mind playing tricks on me. But I remember rebelling and literally using the words rebellion. I will rebel against them and take my sister away to a foreign country where she and I will live a non-conservative Indian life, something like that in broken English. But yeah, it's just it's never who you are in the present moment. It's always the next of kin, someone you feel responsible for, that you don't
that
know
you
what the past is. Yeah. That's very interesting. It's so strange that humans do that they will say कि ये मेरा baggage है, ये मैं ही रखूंगा, आगे ये नहीं होगा. It's like, breaking generational trauma. They often,
I think it's more Indian as well. Because as even as kids we play ghar ghar,
right,
which is stupid. It's really stupid. Where we pretend to be mummy, papa, whatever, like husband and wife, which is just really problematic now that I think of it. But I don't know what is this fascination. I guess it's a fascination with growing up and becoming an adult, but becoming more than becoming an adult, it's also becoming head of the family or protector, not just for the male, like even for the woman, like motherhood, being mama bear. And now when you are at that age where you could become a mother, the thought is just so scary, and it's like, thank you, but no thank you.
Life has panned out way differently than our childhood games would have had us believe. Like hide and seek, you can't really hide from your friends anymore, or neither they can hide from you, because you're always available unless you go off the grid completely. I'll read one poem from LitArchives actually, which stopped me in my tracks at a very tough time in my life, and helped me reconnect with some of the tenderness inside me earlier this year. So in a strange way, I thanked this page then, and now we're doing a podcast. So it's very, I don't know.
Life comes full of gratitude. Circle. Yeah.
Yes. And this is actually one of the translations from Amrita Preetham that many people had a problem with, but I did not, because it was just so beautiful. So here I go. It's in my phone actually here. I'm sorry, just a sec. I think I refreshed the page by accident. So I have to scroll all the way down. It's going to take me, I think, 30 seconds, because those posts are like pretty deep. They were made like in the early part of 2021.
Okay.
The green boxes. Yes, found it. Great. So this is Amrita Preetham Carousel posts, the last one. It's called Trust.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
A rumor, ugly, very ugly, has flown into my room, bat-like, stumbling against the walls in search of nooks and cracks in them. But I have covered the dark alleys of my eyes with both my hands, and my ears I have stuffed with the cotton of your love. Yeah. She's great.
She is.
Yeah. Wow. Anithya, we're right on schedule to finish with 6 minutes to go. I'm not gonna ask you to give people any advice, but since we chat on preaching and nonfiction so heavily, but if you were to, I don't know, like, is there like any parting note that you would have that you want to pass on to the listeners in a non-preachy way, a casual, plain old literature kind of manner, which you love? or just if you have any questions for me, or you want to, like, if you want to spread your, like, a small part of propaganda, could be anything maybe you're passionate about.
No propaganda.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't even call it a message, but I just hope that people don't remain intimidated by literature. Literature, I'm not saying this to sound preachy, but is for everyone. Whether it's a nursery school rhyme that you really like, that is literature as well. And there is something that you can make of it. And even if reading something is difficult for you, because I get that, there is literature in all these small observations that we make in life. Like if you overhear conversations.
Fantastic. My favorite pastime. Yeah.
And sometimes I realized today, this is, I'll share this. Okay, I'm okay with it. Trigger warning, death. I feel the need to say that. But today, I sat outside the ICU ward that my grandmother is in, and this is not sad at all. Like I was angry more than anything. And there was a guy sitting next to me, and now I have a problem with like volume moderation, so I'm pretty sure he heard me. I just came out to my mother after seeing my grandmother, and I was like, this is unfair, like you need to stop. Like, and I said these words, and I'm not even trying to be poetic, but I was like, you need to stop prolonging a life that wants to let go. Because when I walked into the ward, my grandma was actually praying. Like she was praying to be taken away, but taken away in a peaceful manner.
Yeah.
Which I respect. Like she's been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and it's no easy feat. Like she is old, like her body does hurt. So when you are putting through and extending someone's physical pain, I just think it's terrible. And now the guy next to me, I just imagine what it would be like for him to overhear this conversation. Because if I heard it, I would be like, I'm gonna remember this, But I think he was just freaked out because here I am just talking about like let her go. And but yeah, overhear conversations, because not conversations like this, because this is a bit intense, but even when you're on the bus or you're on the train, like I often listen into people talking to their like romantic partners on the phone, and I fucking love it. They're so soft, like, and their exterior is so tough. Like it could be this like burly 40-year-old man on the Mumbai local, and his wife is asking him to get groceries, and his tone will change like this.
Right.
So that is literature, dude. Like literature is not just something you read, but it's the ability to take some joy or something away from these small observations, even if it is just temporary amusement.
Right.
Watch people, listen to what they're saying, because I hope that someday you are moved enough by it to even pen down one sentence from it. And
lovely.
Honestly, anyone can do it. Like,
yeah, you do have a knack for poetic endings. That was beautiful. I think a good call to action. I've done it several times. I also talk about it often in my content, and it's free of cost. You don't have to check your phone, because if you really open your eyes, people are talking about all kinds of crazy shit all the time. Yeah. And it's never fun when it's a complete conversation, because you want to have half of it so you can kind of imagine the rest of it, and that's what keeps you coming back to overhearing things like that. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast. I'm not just making my announcer anchor enthusiastic voice up. I really had fun talking to you, jamming on all these different topics. People can obviously follow you if they want to do that on Instagram. We will post a link in the description, and follow LitArchives as well, in case people want to get a small dose of literature every day, or whenever you guys post. Yeah.
Whenever we post is more accurate. But yeah, no, it's been really nice doing this. I was very averse to it because I was like, what am I even gonna say? But it's been a very nice conversation. It's been a conversation, which I'm always happy to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really look forward to seeing this like everywhere. I just hope Rupi Kaur doesn't find out the shit we said about her.
It's a small possibility, but I will try to DM her, and in the off chance that she sees her requests, if this makes her day, just like, I don't know, if she's smiling and she just goes into a straight face, I think she will have heard our voice.
Yeah, well, I can only apologize in advance. But
Anyhow, it's been a blast. All right, have a good day, take care, and I will speak to you soon.